Hi. This video is going to walk you through how to open a C-Sharp project. When I give you some C-Sharp code, what do you do with it? So first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at C-Sharp. If I just give you a single file, here's how you get it set up to easily run it. And then if I give you a full project, what do you do for that? So firstly, if I give you a single file, so for example, the exercise we did the other week, the exercise we had for this week is this little file. First thing we're going to do is we're just going to open the file in Visual Studio Code. So I'm going to open the file in Visual Studio Code, and now I can see it, which is great. Unfortunately, I can't run it. Not as great. So we need to be able to compile and run it. So what we're going to do is we're just going to open a blank project in Visual Studio. So we're going to create a new blank project and we'll just copy the code into there. So if we go start, we go, actually, this, I'm going to open Visual Studio. You can use this you can do this using any shortcut, but I have a little tool built in that makes it easy for me. I'm going to create a new project. It's going to be a basic console app using Visual Studio 2022 Community Edition. We're going to call it, well, the name of the project is Bitwise Permission. I know that from the namespace, so I'm going to call it Bitwise Permission. Bitwise Permission in this case. You can call it whatever you want. We'll use, if you don't know which one, we're mainly using .NET 7, but you can use .NET 6 or .NET 7. It doesn't really, usually it won't matter too much. Go to .NET 7 by default though, just because that will have more, that has newer features, and occasionally we do use the newer features. Great, so now I have it open up. I have an empty program open. There's nothing really in it, just a hello world. I'm just going to go over here to my original file in Visual Studio Code, copy it, go back to Visual Studio, select all, paste it, save the new program, and now I can just run this program, and it'll run. It's going to cause error, right? This one is going to cause errors right now because there are errors in the code that have to be fixed by you. Just to make it run, we'll add some falses there just so that it actually runs. Then I go bitwise permissions and I run the code. And voila, it opens up. So let's say I enter number 5 because it wants a number, and it does some stuff, and that's it. That's all it takes. You just got to open the file, save it, open the file, create a new project in Visual Studio, open the file in Visual Studio Code, copy the code, paste it into Visual Studio. You don't have to use Visual Studio Code to open the file. You could open it with Notepad++ or Sublime or Atom or whatever text editor you prefer, or even technically with Notepad. It's just a matter of getting the file, copying the contents of the file, and pasting it into an empty project, and then starting your work. That's how we do it for a project. Now the question is, how do we do it for a single file. Now, how do we do it for a project? The way we do it for a project is we are going to go to, so we'll download a project and we'll deal with it. So I'm going to just log into my Omnivox on the other screen. Give me a moment. But projects are simpler because we just have to open the project file, and Visual Studio will open the project for us. So if I go to our documents, we go to, say, lecture 1. It's going to download lecture as a zip. We're going to open this, extract all. Now I'm using Windows, but for Mac there isn't really much of a difference. You're just gonna unzip it using Mac's method, and it's still gonna be the same thing. So we have the project here. This is the Visual Studio solution. We're gonna open this. I don't usually use Visual Studio. I usually use a different program called Writer, but Writer's not free. So I'm gonna use Visual Studio just this once. And by opening that little project file actually has all the details of the entire project, and all the other files are right with us. So in a moment it should open everything. We just need to give it a moment to let it load, and then we're going to open, clicking on one of these files. Perfect. I have my program here. It's open, it's all running, and now if I just click the run button, it builds and it runs, which is perfect. It's calling me saying I have a silly face, but whatever. That's all it takes. So just to make sure that that last one is clear, it's a video so you can watch it back, but I want to make sure you understand that you're not opening the .sln. You're opening this CSP CSproj file. And you open it with whatever program you want to. We're using Visual Studio in the class, so my demonstrations with Visual Studio. Technically, you can open this with Writer, and you'll notice that some of the files were not in the folder before we opened it in Visual Studio. Basically, Visual Studio will create the missing files, and as we compile it, it'll do that as well. And here I've opened it in Writer, and once again, it loads the project. Basically, this CJ profile is a project file that has all the details of what needs to run in that file. So if we open this, in Visual Studio Code, just to be able to look at the file itself, you'll see that it looks a little bit like HTML, except this is what's called XML, because it's giving you, hey, this is some instructions for a project. It tells you the output type, and it tells you a few other details about the project itself. That's all we need.